Hello. Thank you, Shailaja, for that lovely introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm aware that I'm standing in between the lunch that is out there and you. So I will keep this very short, crisp, and hopefully useful. Also, I'm very glad to be here today because I graduated in 2014 and I actually took Professor Dinesh's business analytics class. So feels nice to be back. So, thank you. So, I just want to, before getting into the talk, want to lay down the landscape before you. That what is the landscape in which we are operating and our CXOs are operating, right? So digital transformation, that has been the talk in the industry, and companies like IBM and Microsoft has been earning so much money selling digital transformation consulting projects. When I was with Microsoft, I was also part of such projects. So digital transformation came first, then came cloud adoption, then we were talking about Internet of Things, which is connected cars, smart cities, and then advanced analytics and how we can use ML to drive real business problems and business outcomes, right? And what we were already living in quite a complex world, and we were using terms like VUCA, right? Which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity to make sense of what was happening. And in an already complex world, then came COVID. The harm that COVID did, along with that, it also drove an unprecedented digital adoption. I have personally seen in companies that projects that were, being dilly-dallied or stalled for 2-3 years being completed in 6 months. That's because we had to be on board with digital technologies. We all got used to working via Zoom calls, via MS Teams meetings, etc. And during COVID, I was actually working in a life sciences company called Thermo Fisher Scientific, which is a 44 billion USD company, and we built a website for our specialty chemicals business in just 6 months, all working remotely, and 3 teams across India, China, and US. So a lot of digital adoption happened during COVID, so much so that a lot of companies even over-invested, anticipating a very high digital demand, which the market started correcting itself in September 2022 onwards. Then came November 2022, and a man called Sam Altman became known to every one of us, and life has never been the same before, right? So this just shows you that from 2020 till last year, this is basically the frequency of release of large language models by companies mostly in US, few in China, and then few in Europe, right? So the point is that we are now living in a VUCA world on steroids. Nobody actually knows how the next 3 to 4 years is going to look like. All of us are doing guesswork. Some of us are doing a good job at it, and most of us are doing a terrible job at it. But we need to keep going. So we all know about how in the AI boom and before that, all of the deep learning and ML boom, NVIDIA had gained so much as a company. Their stock price rose skyrocketed. And we all know that they were selling shovels in a gold rush. But we, at this point in time, also don't know who the most likely next winner will be. So things are really, unprecedented. And so much so that if you have been following the AI news cycle, in late January of this year and early Feb, 2 Japanese company stocks actually rose. And one is a toilet maker called Toto, and the other makes MSG. The company's name you might have heard, Ajinomoto, right? So why Toto is the toilet maker's stock price shot up? Because they produce a specialty ceramics that is used for memory chip production, and Ajinomoto's MSG is used for chip packaging. So that drove the stock price rise of these companies. So given that this is the landscape that we all are living in, it's no wonder that our CXOs are anxious, right? They don't know how to manage the operational risks. So let's look at what are the typical top concerns that we understand for each of these C-suite players, right? For a CEO, it is to drive growth amidst financial volatility, to keep creating shareholder value. For a CAO, it is to maintain operational resilience and agility across supply chains and service chains, to maintain a cost performance balance. For a CTO, it is that how good are you, how you are able to do a tech-led business model innovation, how responsible you are for cybersecurity. For a chief data officer, which is a relatively newer role compared to the other four, it is that you are, how are you building data foundations, right? Which means that how are you building data quality, data governance, and most importantly, driving data-driven culture. And for country MDs who are, say, heading India market for a US headquartered company or a China headquartered company, how do you balance local growth, local talent development alongside playing within the local regulations? So while these different priorities exist, but all the C-suite players are working towards three common goals, right? Which is sustainable growth. Company needs to grow, make money, earn revenue. Company needs to sustain, right, all these unprecedented challenges, so organizational resilience. And ultimately, as leaders, as CXOs, you need to manage risk. And on top of it, now is Gen AI. So you have, it doesn't matter which CXO you are here, you have to have a say, an idea and a perspective on AI as a strategic investment. So why does this expectation gap exist in the first place, right? Because things are getting lost in translation. So based on my experience, what I have seen is that it is actually a three-way problem. What leaders say, what they actually mean, and what we as data teams hear, right? And I'm sure many of us in this room have been in actual situations like this. So it's fair for a CXO to ask that, why is competition doing better than us when it comes to AI? I want us to be an AI first company, right? I think pretty much every one of us has heard this since November 2022. And what they actually mean is that there's a lot of anxiety and hype around AI, and CXOs, they live in quarterly cycles, right? They would ideally want to see visible outcomes and results within the next 2 or 3 quarters. But we as data teams, we who work in the trenches, what it appears to us is that we feel that leaders are telling us that you are not moving fast enough. You need to now experiment on to the next, this new shiny thing, while also keep doing what you are doing, right? So while at the same time there is no extra headcount, no extra budget, but you have to somehow manage it. And last is, I have heard is that, you know, I have been running this company in India for 35 years. We have so much data. Why can't you then do something about it? So yes, we have data, but having a lot of data is not the same as having good quality data. A company running for 35 years doesn't mean that they have the required data maturity or data governance or such similar practices. So that is the reason why these expectation gaps exist. So if we know that something is getting lost in translation and who is saying what, then why are we not solving it, right? The reason is not that we are not solving it because we don't know and there's something personal about it. It is a structural thing. And based on my experience, there are 3 primary structural things, which is that first is the timeline mismatch, right? So CXOs are operating in quarterly cycles, as I mentioned, but data science projects mostly operate on, you explore, you do your EDAs, you build something, iterate, something doesn't work, you fail, you rebuild, deploy, and so on and so forth. The second is the survivorship bias problem, right? So, which is that a lot of our leaders are consuming LinkedIn, right? And all of us are on LinkedIn, and you know that LinkedIn, there's no dearth of success stories. If you only look at LinkedIn, you'll feel that everybody is succeeding in data science at 100% of the time. Nobody is failing. Everybody is building agents. Everybody has done everything. OpenClaw announcement, everybody is like, I've solved OpenClaw. I know this, that, which is good. Of course, you need to be hands-on and all of that, but leaders don't have the time to evaluate all of this critically, right? So then they feel that, okay, but what are you guys doing? Why are you not, building so many things like that? So doing something at a one-on-one chat level is very different from building something which is enterprise grade and production ready, right? So that is also something that creates this dissonance. And the third is the metric mismatch, and for this the onus is on us mostly, I feel, the data teams, right? So we report for the right reasons like accuracy, precision, F1 score, recall, etc., right? And I have been in presentations where initially in my career I have also made these mistakes. I was presenting to a very senior leader and I was very happy about telling that how our F1 score has improved and all of that. So he listened patiently and then said that how much does that translate into incremental revenue? And we did not do a good job of answering that question, right? So tech and business needs to speak the same language, right? And attribution is a big problem. What your model is getting better at and how do you translate and attribute that to increased revenue, reduced costs, reduced churn is something that I think all data teams are realistically struggling to basically fine-tune the attribution. So I know we are short of time, so what I will now share is that given my experience, what are the 4 things that we can do to manage this, right? So what I have found is that if you want to drive value through data, digital and analytics, value is in the messy middle. And what is the messy middle? It is neither the point of view that, it's going, data and AI is going to solve everything for me, it's the panacea, nor is the pessimistic point of view that no, nothing is going to happen. All of us reside in the messy middle, and value actually comes from the messy middle. So first thing is you have to start with what you have. Perfect data infrastructure is a myth. So you cannot wait that, oh, my perfect data engineering team will build me a perfect platform, then I will come as a scientist and start building models. No. So one use case that I would like to share is that in Thermo Fisher, we were trying to predict when a machine is up for upgrade, right? So when I was setting up the India team, I did not have, I think I had just one data engineer, and we were yet to hire our first DS, data scientist person. So what we started was with using the global model, right? Because a machine, say a chromatography machine, doesn't behave differently in India and US. So we started using that machine. However, using that model. And what that model was giving us was, it was coding leads, basically, and which were then being passed to the sales team that please go and speak to these customers if they are going to upgrade their machines at this point in time and not. But the sales team gave us feedback that no, you are sending us too many leads and very few of these are actual, we are able to actually qualify it. And when we looked at why this is happening, it's because of different market behaviors. In India, customers would use a machine for say even 20-25 years, whereas in US, due to certain regulations and it being a developed market, a machine upgrade would happen say within 8 to 9 years. So we tweaked the model to accommodate this. Also changes based on industry. Say even within India, a company like Biocon would, for their manufacturing facilities, upgrade a machine much more faster than say a machine sitting in a lab, say in IIT Bombay, right? So academics as an industry is very different in India from these sort of pharma and life sciences companies. So we baked in this sort of market intelligence into the models, and post that when we reworked the model, we were sharing much less number of leads with the sales teams, but these were high quality leads that were getting converted further, and that led to incremental revenue of about 100K USD per year. Similarly, post Thermo Fisher, I was working with a consumer tech startup called Glance. You might have experienced this on your phones. Basically, it's a lock screen content provider. And there also I was hire zero for their content analytics and DS teams. So the first problem there was that my stakeholders were completely data blind. I had joined the company in 2022, and by that time they were around 4 or 5 years old. still, and content was their primary product. Literally, you see a lock screen, wallpaper on a lock screen. If you like that, you click it, a video plays or a game plays, or you read a news article. That is the whole product of the proposition of the company at that time. But they were so data blind that they couldn't answer that, what makes a good wallpaper, what makes a good quality content. Right, so I didn't have the luxury for ideal dashboards to come up to share those insights with my stakeholders. So what I started doing was using SQL, querying the very unclean raw data, doing the data cleaning at our end, and sharing the insights through Excel, and setting up a weekly cadence with the stakeholders, and to teach them that, okay, if you are given this data tomorrow in some other format, doesn't matter, Excel or maybe Superset dashboard or something, you should be able to look at the data and cull out the first order insights. You don't need to depend on the data teams for doing that. And for a few months of doing that, the stakeholders learned it, and then they could do that primarily first order analysis on their own, and our time got freed up and we moved on to other higher order work propositions. Second is that you have to take strategic bets. As science teams, there are always projects vying for your attention, right? So data science has almost become like a shared services, and there will be a team, finance, supply chain, marketing coming with their projects with you, right? But you have limited resources. So you need to basically prioritize projects where you'll get the most bang for your buck. And so again, very quickly we'll share two case studies. One was that for Thermo Fisher, again in India, one of the largest customer segments is the government, and the way government buying in India happens is through bidding. Now the government has actually built a very good portal called Government E-Marketplace, or GEM, where they float all the tenders, and as a company you have to apply there, and then the bidding process is very transparent. You go through 2 rounds: technical qualification, financial qualification, and then you are either you lose the bid or you are awarded the bid. Now the business problem was that our salespeople told that the bids that we win, we know why we won. But the bids that we lose, we have very little visibility, that if another competitor is winning it, did they win because their tech specs were better than us, or because they offered a better pricing? So what we did was we basically started building a competitor intelligence system around this, where we scraped all the data in the government website. So we built a scraper and a crawler, and then we also started gathering any intel about competitors from the public space. So right, for example, if any competitor is launching a new manufacturing facility, if there are top level exits or hiring, all of this information we collated in a dashboard, and that was ready for consumption for the sales and marketing teams. So over time then this helped in primarily giving the business teams 2 inputs, which is input to the local pricing teams, that if for a particular segment we are losing bids only at the financial qualification round, then that means that are we willing to tweak our price to maintain a certain market share. And the second input is that if we are continuously losing bids for because we are not qualifying technically, then that became a feedback for the global product development team that sits in US, that if you want to operate this product line in India, either you make these changes or you make this product line obsolete in a phased manner. Glance, we had a different problem. It was 150 million daily active user DAO platform, so there was a problem of plenty, lot of data we were sitting on, and yeah, we could do so many things on that data. However, it is very easy to then lose sight of what actually matters. So along with the business, we identified that what is the one problem statement that we need to solve, which is the total core, which is that we need to find out for that 150 million daily users that are coming, what is the top 2 or 3 pieces of content that if I show him on his phone, he will actually click. Because we were serving content in 7 languages at that time, right? So if I show somebody sitting in Tamil Nadu who is interested in Tamil local politics a very nicely made Bengali content card, it really doesn't matter, right? He will not click on it. So what we did was, and for that 150 million user base, you cannot manually run A/B tests, right? So we built A/B test experimentation platform where we were running this a very large number of content experiments, right? So exposing users to different combination of contents and seeing their affinity and 7-day, 15-day retention towards it. And then that's how we actually informed our content strategy. And after doing this for about 6 months, because it's quite difficult to change people's consumption behaviors, but after doing this for about 6 months, we saw a 40% increase in CTR, which is how we primarily were measuring engagement, and 20% increase in eCPM, because it is an ads enabled model. Third learning that I have had is that you have to build and iterate, and you have to gain domain knowledge, because domain knowledge is an impact multiplier. You can be a good data scientist, but if you want to be a great data scientist, you have to understand the domain you're operating in, right? So and one of the opportunities that we got for increasing our domain knowledge was when we were working with the supply chain teams in Thermo Fisher. So one of the problem statements was that for spare parts, for the made to stock MTS spare parts, the supply chain team had done some forecasting model, but it was not working as well as they would have wanted it to. So then they came to us and said that how can we collaborate on improving our forecasting. So here we made we used deep learning and XGBoost for creating inventory prediction model. And what we also learned from the supply chain teams is that based different types of, again, machine cross, customer segment, the frequency of spare parts that actually comes. We spoke to services people, right? Because services people actually go and fix if a machine is broken. And based on that, we created a data feedback loop, right? Because otherwise, if you just build a model, share the output, and then you don't know how that output is being used, if at all it is being used, then you cannot really improve either your model or your own knowledge. So what we were doing was, at the beginning of every month, we would share our predicted inventory with the supply chain teams, and at the end of the month, they would actually share what the actual orders had come, and then we would see the gap, do a recon, and feed it to the next iteration of the model. It took us about 1 year to get to a state where we could say that yes, this is working fine, and we could see a lead time reduction for procuring parts by about 27 working days. Last example is again from Glance, which was a much high churn environment compared to Thermo Fisher. So, and at one point in time, our strategy was changing every week. So if you have worked in startups, you would know that this does happen. So at one point in time, we had to sort of tell that, okay, boss, we cannot go through, change in strategy every week. Let's meet at a middle ground and see what we can do. So the problem again was, even after 4 to 5 years of operation, there was no consensus in the company that what makes a good content, right? So one of the VPs even said that, let's just show users 5 wallpapers on rotation. Of course, we didn't do that, but we also then, by that time, we had, due to the other A/B experimentation platforms that we had built and things like that, we had basically gained enough knowledge ourselves and built enough stakeholder trust to tell that let us attempt to answer what makes a good content, why I would show, say, wallpaper A to user B and not wallpaper B. So this again was basically, the point is that you have to build trust. You will not get things right the first time, and over time, if you have built enough credibility with stakeholder teams, they'll listen to you, and you'll find a middle ground to take things forward and drive value. Last thing is that I want to basically talk about failure, because a lot of initiatives that you will take in the future will fail, right? And you need to learn. This is where soft skills play a very important role. You need to learn how to communicate failure, because if you are communicating it early, that's a learning for the entire team. But a late failure, if you communicate, it becomes a crisis. Then you have to do a crisis management. Second is you have to be custodians of integrity, right? So data sits at the intersection of insights and also narratives. And narratives by nature are fungible, right? We can tweak narratives, and especially if you are sitting with a leader who is in a position of authority and you are under a lot of pressure, you might be tempted in tweaking the narratives irrespective of what your data says. So that is also a skill we need to cultivate as we go higher up, that how can I communicate uncomfortable truths with curiosity, compassion, but with also a lot of integrity. So in conclusion, these are the takeaways I would wish the audience to go back with, which is that yes, CXO expectation gaps will stay. That is why the talk is managing, not eradicating. So let's eradicate CXO expectation gap. No, that's not going to happen. It's going to remain, but we can manage it. And there are few ways which I have seen, in which we can manage, which is that don't wait for the perfect infra. Start with what you have, show value, gain trust, align your stakeholders, move forward. Other thing is that speak both business and tech. The greatest data scientists are those people who work at the intersection of business and tech. They have that much domain knowledge that's an impact multiplier for them. And last is be the custodian of integrity. Learn to communicate failure, learn to speak uncomfortable truth to power with tact, curiosity, and openness. So that's all. It was lovely speaking to you. You were very patient, and if you'd like to stay connected with me, I'm reachable at these coordinates. Thank you.
Any questions?
Hello, madam. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Actually, I'm Professor Dakshinamurthy from Coimbatore. Coimbatore has one unique problem like MSME. Since you worked in Thermo Fisher Scientific and you worked enormously with the predictive or prescriptive based analytic for instrumentation, machineries, everything. So, but Thermo Fisher is a huge company and there is no problem for investing in resources, investing in manpower. Once, if I have an industry like MSME where I have a limited manpower and resources financially and technically, how do we bring these kind of predictive maintenance or machineries, the connecting data with machineries? That is my one limitation I want to address here. So I'm looking your information on that.
So if I understand correctly, you are saying that for a small scale operation, how would you basically connect? How will you basically get the data signals from your machines? Is that your question,
yes.
Sir?
They have a mostly one machine operator. Or less than 50 human resources.
Yeah, lack of resources. Yeah, so honestly, sir, I will give you a guess answer because I have not worked with SMBs, and you're right. The resources that Thermo Fisher has, a 44 billion USD company has, is no way comparable with a small outfit that you are mentioning. However, I think we have reason to be hopeful because with Gen AI and see IoT is at least 8-9 years back. So if this is a problem that is really it's a big problem for you, then using sensors you can start even for that one machine start sending data. And today you have free tools and with reasonable credits like use Google Colab or TensorFlow to basically start playing around with that data. You can today say ask a Claude co-work and that, hey, I have this one machine, this is the type of data that I have got. Suppose you have connected your sensors, what is the model and this is the outcome that I want to do. So for example, I want to predict when this machine will fail next, right? How can I build a model to for that, and how can I measure it? It will actually give you 3-4 options, right? For example, first it will tell you that you will have to go with a forecasting model, and the options are you can probably do an ARIMA, XGBoost and all of this, and how then you can fine tune the weights in the model with certain epoch lengths and all of that. So so I think that is something probably you can try if that is if it's a pressing problem for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susmita.